guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to dive into our habits, how to build good habits, how to rid bad ones. It's going to be important stuff, guys. It's going to be some game-changing stuff as far as your fat loss journey, but you can also probably apply this to everything in life as well. Super excited about this one. This is something I've been studying for a while now through some certain books. I definitely recommend you read them. Atomic Habits and The Power of Habit, really important stuff you can pull from. And so a lot of this is from those books. So I can't take all the credit. I wish I could, but I can't. So creating good and breaking bad habits. From the previous module, you guys understand that the habit loop is going to be the backbone of why we behave. And so as you know, habits have to have a cue. They have to have a craving. They have to have a response, and of course, we obtain a reward. And so in order to build good habits, we want to look at these 4 laws. We want to make sure that the cue is obvious. We want to make sure that it's attractive, easy, and satisfying. So the first thing is making it obvious. So the brain is continuously taking in surroundings, analyzing the information it comes across. Whenever you experience something repeatedly, your brain begins noticing what is important, sorting through the details and highlighting the relevant cues and cataloging that information for future use. Enough times doing this, the brain can pick up certain outcomes without consciously thinking about it. It becomes something we do on autopilot. This is really important stuff, guys. The more we repeat these actions, the less we question what we're doing and why we were doing it. It's the reason why bad habits are so easy to accumulate, and that's pretty much why, right? We're a lot of times relying on our unconscious mind because our brains do not like to expend a ton of energy. We want to conserve our energy because as humans, our main goal is to survive. So it would be a lot for the brain to think about things like brushing our teeth, getting dressed, going to work, all the things that we do in everyday life. So the unconscious mind plays a huge role in habits. First thing is we want to make it obvious. We want to start making cues obvious so it gets our brain to then respond to what we see. We're visual human beings. If you want to start eating more fruit, then have a bowl of fruit easy to see in your kitchen counter. You're probably going to be more likely to start eating things like mangoes if mangoes are something that are really obvious. So the first thing, when you see walking into your home is a bowl of fruit on the kitchen counter, it's going to get your mind to think about eating more fruit. So obviously, when you see the fruit, you're going to eat it. When buying products in the store, we don't really care what they are, rather than where they're located. Really interesting stuff, guys. So if you notice, whenever I go to Trader Joe's, I noticed before leaving there was some candy, whether it's the caramel chocolate or the dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Just because they're located there, it gets my mind to think about those certain products, so I purchase them. It's the same thing, whenever we're in the store, going grocery shopping, the first thing that we notice sometimes is, things on sale, but really marketers place those so that way we can buy those, and that's the first thing that we see. So it's very obvious, gets us to think that we want them. So how to make it obvious? Start by placing cues in visual places. Simple as that. Create an environment that will shift your behavior or go to a new one where you can implement the behavior. Habits are easier to build in a new environment. Simple as that, guys. For me, whenever I want to get work done, I have to go to a coffee shop. The reason is because it switches up my mindset, but there's people that are working. And so whenever I'm home, it's hard for me to get work done. So in order for you to start building new habits, sometimes going to a new environment can be very useful. So also, we want to avoid mixing the habit of one with another. Whenever possible, we do not want to mix up the context with one or more habits, since we always revert to the easier habit. This makes a lot of sense. Every habit should have a home. So an example of this is whenever we're on our phone, we have a desire to check our email, text, Facebook, YouTube, all of the above. If your goal was to get better at reading, then obviously these contexts would make it very hard, since that you would be on your phone instead of reading. So instead, split things up. Focus comes naturally when sitting at your desk, right? Sleep does too when your bed is only for sleeping, not for TV. If you notice that, you want to get more sleep, but your TV's in your room, then naturally when we're going to bed, we want to start watching TV and we don't get those 7 hours. If you want habits that are stable and predictable, you also want an environment which is stable and predictable as well. We also want to make our habits attractive. This is very, very important stuff, guys. When our brains experience certain stimuli in a heightened version, we begin to crave that certain stimuli more often. So if we can take food for an example, food scientists actually engineer food down to the specific crunch in a potato chip to heighten our brain's reward system to want more of it. They spend millions of dollars finding out these things, the perfect fizz in a soda, the right amount of creaminess in peanut butter, the golden brown in French fries. They know the more attractive something is, it's advantageous to our brain's reward system, which will get humans to crave these foods more often. The more attractive the opportunity, the more habit forming it is. This is just not in food, but in our society as well. If you look at things like curvy mannequins to buy clothes, social media, likes just to post more often, and things like that. These are all different from what our ancestors had, and it's making easier and easier to develop bad habits. Very true stuff here, guys. Dopamine. Obviously, you guys have heard about dopamine, but what is it? It's the hormone, right, that drives our brains to search for that reward. As soon as we get some sense of reinforcement that we were closer to the reward, dopamine is released like crazy. The average slot machine player will spin the wheel an average of 600 times per hour. That's because they're constantly searching for that feeling. They're constantly searching for that reward, and every single time they spin a new cue, so it's recycling the habit loop. Releasing dopamine, which is then causing cravings for them to search for that reward and obtain that reward. What does it play a role in? Again, our habits are a dopamine feedback loop. Dopamine used to be thought to just play a role. It's usually thought to just play a role in addictive behavior, like sex, drugs, and alcohol, food, and social media. But now we have found out it plays a role in our motivation, our learning, memory, and punishment. Really cool stuff. Dopamine is not just released when you experience pleasure, but also when you anticipate it. This is the biggest thing to really take note from this section right here, is that we release dopamine when we anticipate the reward, when we anticipate the feeling that we're going to capture from thinking about that action or that behavior we're about to partake in. So gambling addicts get a splurge of dopamine when they place a bet, and actually not when they win. The same thing for people when smoking. It's when they see a cigarette, because that's the cue that anticipates the reward. So desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes it. We want to link an action with what we are doing, right? So what would be easy here, right, is we want to make sure that we link an action with what we have to do with what we want to do. So let's say that you have a goal to, exercise more. So while you're on the treadmill, you can watch Netflix, which is something that you want to do, but you're also doing something that you have to do that's going to be, exercising. This kind of goes along with stacking your habits. So whenever we want to stack our habits, this is a good formula you guys can use. So, after I exercise, or current habit, right? After I will do the current habit, I will do the habit I need to do. After the habit I need to do, I will do the habit I want to do. So an example would be, if you want to watch sports, but you need to make sales calls, after I get back from my lunch break, I will call 3 potential clients. And after I call those 3 potential clients, I'll check ESPN, right? So this is something I need to do, calling people, but then I will do something I want to do with ESPN. Same thing goes with Facebook, but you want to exercise more. After I pull up my phone, I'll do 10 burpees. That's something I need to do. And after I do the 10 burpees, I'll check Facebook. That's something, I want to do. So this works really, really well. How to fix bad habits. This is going to be a really big one here. If we want to get the bad habit of smoking or eating an addictive food, we want to make the action unattractive. A simple tool we can use is to reframe the cue to get our mind to see the action as non-beneficial to us. So this kind of goes back, saying certain things that get our mind to link this certain action to pain. So let's say that your addiction is smoking or overeating, whatever it may be. You think you're quitting something, but you're not quitting anything because cigarettes do nothing for you. Very impactful here. You think drinking is something you need to be social, but it's not. You can be social without drinking at all. You think overeating is about relieving stress, but it's not. Overeating does not relieve stress. It just makes you feel worse. So these things clearly are getting your mind to link pain to these behaviors. Why we really crave things. This is really interesting stuff, guys. Our cravings really come from underlying motives that we're trying to fill. Things like conserving energy, finding love and reproducing, connection and bonding with others, social acceptance and approval, achieving status and prestige. And so when performing a habit at a deep level, we just actually want to fill these voids of anxiety, insecurities, to win social acceptance and approval, or to achieve status, or to achieve some underlying motive. And it actually goes back to our ancestors, because our ancestors were actually trying to do these exact things. If you think about it, we're trying to conserve energy, right, by hunting and gathering the food and supplies that we're trying to get, as well as finding love and reproducing. Our ancestors did that very well, obviously. Connection and bonding, and they're also trying to be, and basically trying to have approval from other people as well. And this goes back, I don't know, centuries and centuries ago, but it's very prevalent today. And that is the underlying motives that we're actually trying to do in a lot of situations. Habits are really about association. This is very important, guys. One person may learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette, where one other may learn to reduce stress by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems you face. They're just the methods you learned once. Once you associate a solution with the problem you need to solve, you keep coming back to it. Our associations determine whether we predict a habit to be worth repeating or not, right? We're constantly making predictions, right? Our brain perceives a cue. We run a simulation and make prediction about what we're going to do in the next moment. So let's say that you notice the stove's hot. Well, you're going to make a prediction that if you touch it, it's probably not going to feel good, right? We see cues based on past experience and determine an appropriate response. All day long, we're making our best guess on how to act given what has worked in the past. All the craving is a sense of something missing. It is a desire to change our internal state, right? So this idea of being in our current state to our desired state, that gap is the reason why we act, because we want to go towards our desired state. These things lead to feelings, and this is the key here, right? Two people can look at the same cigarette, and one feels the urge to smoke, where the other is repulsed by the smell. The same cue can spark a good habit or a bad habit, depending on the prediction. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. This leads to feelings onto emotions. Feelings and emotions can transform the cues we perceive and the predictions we make into a signal we can apply. It is only when we predict we may be better off in another state that we take action. And it's very true, right? So, if our desired state is where we need to be, and that's where we predict where we're going to be at our best self, we're going to take action because of that, because we want to be there. So we want to link habits to positive feelings. Habits are attractive when we associate them to a positive feeling. You can make hard habits more attractive. You learn to associate them with a positive experience. Sometimes all we need is that mindset shift. If we reframe our habits to highlight the benefits rather than their drawbacks, we can reprogram our mind to make a habit seem more attractive. Simply practice associating your habits with something you enjoy, and that will become the cue. Next, we want to make it easy. This is very simple, right? Our unconscious mind is designed to save as much energy as possible, right? This is why when things become unconscious, they become automatic and make bad habits very easy to occur again. Think about how much energy the brain would, use brushing your teeth, things I had mentioned before. This is why repetition of what is easy is very key. So obviously when we repeat actions, that's how they become habits. It's the key to make habits stick. This is why we want to avoid psyching ourselves out, waiting for the perfect time to start our fitness journey. Oftentimes, when we do a ton of research, we worry about foods that we don't know what to eat. We worry about, not knowing the exercises, what clothes to buy, and all of the above. And it kind of prevents us from the start, right? It gives us that halt. This is why we need to break things down and focus on small wins, which, of course, the fishbowl method is something we can use. We got to first figure out where your friction is during your day. Usually the more friction something has, the less likely we're going to do it. So we want to pull that friction away so that way we can start adding things that are easy. An example would be, if you're eating unhealthy, that's probably because maybe they're in the cabinets. So it makes it very obvious for you to want to eat those foods. So we want to figure out where that friction is, and we want to design that environment around your friction. Okay, so this is very important. So if we look at our environment to figure out the friction is in our environment, we can simply create new ones. If you want to go to the gym, choose one on the way home. If you want to eat healthy, right, make healthy foods obvious and the first thing you see. If you want to stop looking at your phone, and set it aside where it can't be seen. If you want to schedule more calls, fit them in your day where it's easy. We want to reduce friction for the habits we want and increase friction on the habits we don't want. This is very, this is kind of the reason, how we're going to avoid bad habits is we want to increase friction on the habits that we don't want. We want to make it hard. That's what I was just referring to. So, we want to get rid of bad habits. We want to make the cues less obvious, less attractive, and harder to do. If you want to stop looking at your phone, turn it on on silent, and make sure that it's out of place. If you want to stop playing iPhone games, undownload the apps. If you want to give up bad foods, then don't buy them. If you want to stop smoking, make a rule to buy the most expensive pack possible and store it somewhere where you can't see. Linking pain to that, because obviously we don't want to spend the most money on cigarettes. So when we make our cues harder to reach, less obvious and unattractive, we can change our habits. We want to make sure that we're linking a lot of pain to the bad habits that we have. Making it satisfying is the cardinal rule of behavior change. We want to make sure that the experience is satisfying, and we get to see progress when we're doing this. This is how habits stick. Of course, if it becomes easier to do something satisfying than when it's not, what is rewarded is repeated, and what is punished is avoided. We learn what to do in the future based on what we're rewarded for doing and punished for not doing. Positive emotions cultivate habits, and negative ones destroy them. Immediate gratification, this is very, very prevalent in our society. We obviously want things now, and oftentimes the delayed gratification is what is actually going to achieve our long-term self. So we do live in an immediate return environment where actions instantly deliver clear and immediate outcomes. However, we also live in a delayed return environment. If you think about it, many of our choices do not affect us immediately. If you start to work out now, you may not be overweight next year, right? If you do a good job at work, you get a paycheck in 2 weeks. If you save money now, you may be able to retire earlier. Our brains, however, did not evolve this way, seeing as our ancestors always had to be alert for their next meal, fight or flight, or their next kill, always in fight or flight, right? So it makes it very hard, because that's we carry a lot of stuff from our ancestors to now, and that's why we're living in this immediate return environment. We tend to always gravitate toward an immediate reward. We know the feeling of pleasure is, right? That's where the reward is. We want to obtain that pleasure, and we know exactly where that is. But oftentimes it's these immediate rewards that get in the way from what we really want long term. Humans thrive off of certainty, and that's why a reward that is certain right now is typically worth more than one that is merely possible in the future. This may be because the reward is immediate and consequence is delayed, so we chase what is immediate. Consequence is usually delayed, right? Smoking can kill you 10 years from now, but it reduces stress and anxiety now. Overeating can make you feel fat, but it fills a void of insecurity now. Saving money can help you go to college, but you want those clothes now, right? So oftentimes the consequence is down the road, so we obviously don't necessarily think about it as much. Bad versus good habits, with our bad habits, the immediate outcome usually feels good. But the ultimate outcome feels bad. With our good habits, the immediate outcome often feels bad, but the ultimate outcome feels great. And so it's really hard to obviously develop good habits because of this. When we make plans to lose weight, you're actually making plans for your future self. Think about that. As a general rule, the more immediate the pleasure you get from an action, the more you strongly should question whether it aligns with your long-term goals. How to add pleasure. So how do we add pleasure if what is immediately rewarded is repeated and what is immediately punished is avoided? The key is to add a little bit of immediate pleasure to the habits that pay off in the long run and immediate pain to the ones that don't. This is a very good way to adopt good habits. How to make instant gratification your bitch. The vital thing in getting any habit to stick is feeling successful, even if it was in a small way, small wins, right? We want the ending of any habit to be satisfying. We remember the feeling at the end of any habit rather than the phases. So the key here is to use immediate reinforcement. This can be extremely helpful for the habits we want to avoid or stop doing. It can be hard to skip things like no alcohol this month or no bread or no Netflix because nothing happens when you do that. When you do not do these things, right? All you're doing is resisting temptation, and there's nothing satisfying about that at all. So we want to make sure that avoidance is visible. So an example would be, let's say that you open a savings account and you label it leather jacket. Whenever you skip a purchase, then you're going to transfer money into that account. Let's say that you skip your morning latte, pass another month of Netflix, move $10 over. This is like creating a loyalty program for yourself. The immediate reward of seeing yourself save money toward a leather jacket feels a lot better than feeling deprived of not having money. We want to do this because eventually these feelings will transfer over to a better mood, more energy, and reduce stress. We'll be less focused on the secondary reward, right? And the identity itself will be the primary reward. The more a habit becomes part of your life, the less you need outside encouragement to follow through. So that's why incentives can start a habit and identity sustains a habit. So how to make habits stick? Obviously, you want to make sure that you're tracking your habits with small wins. It's the whole point of the fishbowl method. You want to make sure you're tracking your habits with incentives because obviously we're chasing that pleasure, and the more times we get that pleasure, the things are going to stick. Accountability partners are very big. You can get someone to do this with you, or you can hire a coach like you guys did. And of course, you want to make sure that you do not track your bad habits and you do not stay in a mindset where you feel like you have effed up. And that's the whole point of the whole entire mentality of the metabolic makeover, is reframing your mind that you cannot stay in a situation. And then our next decision is what's most important to move forward, to get back on the railroad tracks, to make sure that you're back on course corrected, that back in your lane to go towards your long-term self. We want to make sure that your progress is visible. And that's why we're tracking our measurements, progress photos, all the above. And of course, the habit contract. Habit contract can be something, or like rules that you apply to yourself, and any time that you don't match those rules, that's when you can take your marble out of the fishbowl method, or you can link pain to those, so that way you can course correct those and make better habits. So this is really obviously really long module, and I know that you're 22 minutes now, but this is very, very valuable stuff, guys. This is actually going to be life-changing to you guys. So I really hope this had helped understand habits and why they occur, how to build good habits, how to destruct bad ones, understanding the habit loop, and how to make habits stick, so that way you can be more consistent to become your 2.0 version of yourself at your hilltop. So hope this was really valuable to you guys.